On a chilly Saturday evening, October 4th, 1952, at exactly 8:47 p.m., the night sky over Harlem was peaceful, deceptively so. At 228 97th Avenue, on the rooftop nestled at the corner of West 134th Street, the temperature sat at a cool 61 degrees. Overhead, the nearly full moon cast silver light across the tarred roof, watching silently. 4 stories below, the sidewalk waited, 48 feet of brutal concrete between heaven and hell. Standing tall at the center of the rooftop was Bumpy Johnson. Around him, a crescent of 13 white men, silent, ready, weapons in hand. Every one of them came armed. Every one of them came armed. Their hands gripped baseball bats, tire irons, crowbars, tools of pain, not speed. They didn't want a gunshot. They wanted bruises, fractures, scarred pride. Firearms would have made this too easy, too quick, too painless. No, what they came to deliver tonight wasn't just violence. It was an unmistakable message, one written in agony and humiliation. These weren't strangers. They were the Westside Boys, a ruthless gang from Hell's Kitchen, built from Irish and Italian bloodlines. At their head stood Patrick "Red" Malone, 34 years old, 6 feet tall, 195 pounds of muscle wrapped in menace. And that flaming hair? That's where the name Red came from, but it was the trail of violence he left behind that defined him. The Westside Boys owned chunks of Hell's Kitchen, iron-gripped control over entire blocks. They squeezed local businesses to protection rackets, lent money with threats etched into every dollar, and raked profits from underground gambling. Turf wars were their norm, routine clashes with neighboring crews. But Harlem? Harlem wasn't theirs, never was. Everyone knew Harlem belonged to Bumpy Johnson. That wasn't just local knowledge, it was law. The Westside Boys knew it too. Knew it, and still, they crossed the line. It didn't start on that rooftop. It started 3 weeks earlier, September 13th, 1952. A numbers runner named Tommy Dqua was working a delicate strip of turf between Hell's Kitchen and Harlem, stretched from West 57th to 60th. That no man's land was claimed by both sides, no clear borders. Tommy ran the numbers for Bumpy, paid his cut, and stayed out of trouble for 6 solid months. Quiet business, no heat. Then the Westside Boys made a move. They decided they didn't want to share anymore. They wanted that territory, all of it. Red Malone didn't send warnings. He sent 2 of his men. They tracked down Tommy and made the choice clear. Stop working for Bumpy. Start working for us, or stop working altogether. Permanently. Tommy took the message straight to Bumpy. He'd seen turfs get tangled before. This wasn't new, just another claim staking. Bumpy replied calmly, sending Marcus Webb as his mouthpiece. The message was firm. The borderlands were neutral. Tommy worked for Bumpy. The Westside Boys could run their own numbers, but they had no right to push Bumpy's people out. That was the line. It was a fair deal. Clean, professional, no ego. But Red Malone wasn't interested in fair. He wanted domination. His answer came on September 17th. Tommy was found in an alley, barely breathing, both arms broken, his face shattered beyond recognition. Pain turned into punctuation. The Westside Boys weren't proposing a compromise. They were declaring war. Message delivered. Message received. Bumpy didn't react with fury. He reacted with precision. 2 days later, on September 19th, he sent 3 men into Hell's Kitchen. They found 2 Westside Boys shaking down a bar on 10th Avenue for protection money. By the end of the encounter, both were left in hospital beds. Broken bones, busted faces, equal scars to match Tommy's. The response was not a revenge hit. It was proportional, deliberate, pure business. That should have been the end of it. Both sides bruised, both sides respected, draw the line and walk away. But Red Malone didn't see equality in retaliation. He saw offense, escalation, insult. The idea of Bumpy Johnson, a black man, putting hands on his crew in their own backyard boiled his blood. So Red made a choice, not to talk, not to broker peace, but to wipe Bumpy out. He He wasn't interested in meeting halfway. Red Malone's strategy was clean, brutal, eliminate Bumpy Johnson from the board. If Harlem lost its boss, the rest would crack under pressure, divide, dissolve. Without a leader, a kingdom becomes scraps. Red intended to pick it clean. The plan was simple, ruthless. Set up a meeting, neutral ground, calm faces, all under the illusion of peace talks. Then ambush him, kill him, dump the body where questions couldn't find it. With Bumpy gone, Harlem would collapse from the inside. No leader, no unity, just scattered pieces for the Westside Boys to claim one corner at a time. It was set for Saturday, October 4th at 8:30 p.m. The location, 228 97th Avenue, a 4-story relic, quiet and mostly vacant. Ground floor, an empty storefront. Second and third, low rent floor, an empty storefront. Second and third, low rent apartments. Fourth floor, storage only. Rooftop accessible by fire escape. The building was owned by a man buried in debt, deep in Red Malone's pocket. He handed over the keys, the access, everything needed to turn the place into a trap. Bumpy arrived at 8:35 p.m., 5 minutes late on purpose. Always control the clock, never play on someone else's rhythm. He came alone. A meeting marked as neutral meant minimal backup. That's the code, no theatrics. He scaled the fire escape, standard practice. The front door was too exposed, too visible. The fire escape was discretion. At 8:42 p.m., he stepped onto the rooftop. Red Malone was already there, arms folded, along with 12 of his soldiers, 13 men total, all of them carrying weapons, all of them ready. Bumpy understood the truth on sight. This wasn't negotiation, it was execution. "Glad you could make it, Bumpy," Red said coolly, like nothing was amiss. "We've got things to settle about Tommy Dqua, about Harlem, about respect." His voice was relaxed, even friendly, like someone who thought he'd already won. Bumpy quickly scanned the setup. 13 men surrounded him. One way out, blocked. 4 stories up, no cover, no backup, no escape. Fighting wasn't an option. He'd be torn apart before he landed a single punch. Talking might be worth a few breaths. But for what? Nobody knew where he was. Marcus Webb knew of the meeting, sure, but Bumpy planned to call after. No call? Marcus would just think things ran long. Time was not his ally. "Respect," Bumpy said, voice calm, clear. "Interesting word, considering you came to Harlem uninvited and ambushed me with no honor." No panic in his tone, no fear. Dignity wasn't a luxury, it was muscle memory. If this was death, he'd stare it down standing. "Negotiations for equals," Red replied flatly. "You're not my equal. You're a black man selling numbers in a dying neighborhood. I'm expanding into your streets. Simple math, you're in the way." Red pulled a pistol, not to shoot yet, just to make sure there were no doubts about how this was ending. His crew closed in, tightening the circle. It was a noose made of bricks and baseball bats. Crowbars shone under the rooftop lights. Positioning was tight. Left, right, behind. All exits were sealed. These men weren't amateurs. It was a clean setup. Bumpy noticed. So did his instincts. "This is what happens next," Red said, as if reading a script. "My boys are gonna break you, smash your bones, wreck your face. You'll be a message. Then we toss you over the side. 4 stories. Concrete finish. Maybe you survive. Maybe not. Either way, you're done. Run Harlem from a hospital bed? Don't think so." He was savoring the moment, soaking in the pride of false victory. Bumpy stayed silent. His mind was calculating fast. Fighting meant torture followed by death. Not fighting meant straight to the fall. Either way, the ending hovered nearby. Could he stall them? Buy time? There was no time to buy. Survival now wasn't about avoiding the fall. It was about how he fell. He made a decision, not rash, not desperate. Strategic. Defiant. "Then do it," Bumpy said, stepping toward the rooftop edge, not away. "Plenty of talk. Let's see if you have the guts to act." The movement threw Red off balance. He expected begging, fear. anything but courage. Instead, Bumpy took charge of the moment, even if it was his final one. It rattled Red, forced him to react. "You want it quick?" Red said, snapping. "Fine, do it." He nodded to his men. 4 stepped forward, grabbed Bumpy's arms, jacket, belt, secured him, locked him down, dragged him to the edge. The ledge was 18 inches tall, solid brick. Below, a patch of 7th Avenue's concrete littered with late-night stragglers. Harlem shimmered like nothing was wrong. Restaurants open, clubs buzzing. No one knew what was about to interrupt their evening. Bumpy didn't fight the grip. Too many hands. Resistance would only earn him broken ribs before the fall. Better to hit the ground awake. Better to control what little he could. Falling conscious meant options. A slim chance was still a chance. 48 feet is survivable. Rare, yes, but possible, if you fell the right way. Luck, gravity, and God had to coordinate. As they lifted him up and swung for momentum, Bumpy locked in. Body awareness, position, timing, and then release. At precisely 8:47 p.m. and 2 seconds, Bumpy Johnson was airborne, thrown from a Harlem rooftop at a rough horizontal speed of 15 miles per hour. The rest was physics. Terminal acceleration pulled him fast 32 feet per second squared. The entire fall consumed just 1.7 seconds. By impact, he hit the sidewalk at 35 miles per hour, like being struck by a vehicle. But Bumpy had been trained. Falling was part of survival in his world. Protect the head. Protect the spine. Tuck hard. Twist if you can. Hit feet first if humanly possible. Bones can break. Heads don't get second tries. His body coiled midair, tight. The leg hit first, left side, taking the brunt. The hip followed, then shoulder. Then he rolled. The human body isn't built for crashes, but it can be guided. His landing didn't stop the pain, it magnified it. But it controlled the damage. Clean break in the left femur. Hip dislocated. Shoulder torn out of place. Brutal, but not fatal. Skull intact. Spine unbroken. Lungs functional. He lay on that cold slab of Harlem sidewalk, hurt, bleeding, but alive. Barely. Pedestrians screamed. Some ran toward him, some ran away. They didn't know what they'd seen. A man had fallen or jumped or been thrown, no one could say for sure. But it was horrifying. Someone picked up the nearest payphone, dialed for help. Police station, ambulance, standard chaos. Above, Red Malone and company peered down. Bumpy looked broken, lifeless. Their work was done, they figured. The Westside Boys retreated. Down the fire escape, back into their transport vehicles. Off to Hell's Kitchen to toast a mission complete. Bumpy Johnson was gone, so they assumed. But on that sidewalk, Bumpy was busy checking his damage. Left leg useless, hip on fire, shoulder hanging. But the right arm and leg still worked. He couldn't stand, but he could move. Slowly, desperately. The crowd hesitated. Someone called for help, but Bumpy raised one arm, barely. Voice cracked but alive. "Help me." A woman approached, mid-40s, neighborhood familiar. Recognition lit her face. "Mr. Johnson? Are you, my God, you need a hospital. I'll get help." "No. No hospital. I'll get help. No hospital. No police. Help me to that alley. I'll explain later." He was already dragging himself inches at a time, toward the shadowy space between buildings. 10 feet. That was the goal. 10 feet to vanish. She bent to help him, laced it under his arm. Together, as slowly as agony permits, they made their way from the sidewalk into the dark. 2 minutes. That's all it took. The longest 2 minutes of Bumpy's life. But finally, hidden. In the distance, sirens began to wail. Police, ambulance closing in fast. Someone had made the call. A man had gone over a building in Harlem on a Saturday night. These responders didn't know it yet, but they were already too late. The alley was empty by the time they arrived. No victim, no suspects. Just scattered gawkers, confused witnesses, and 1-inch-deep puddle of blood already beginning to dry. Bumpy, huddled in the shadows, focused on staying awake. Unconsciousness tugged at him with every pulse of pain, but he pushed back, stronger. If he passed out, he'd be discovered, taken to a hospital, reports would be filed. Red Malone's men would find out where he was. They'd come to finish it. No. He couldn't afford to lose control, not now. A plan was already forming. Vengeance would not wait. He turned to the woman and gave her a phone number. Marcus Webb's. Trusted. Loyal. Tell him I'm behind 228 97th. Tell him, Red Malone. Tell him bring everyone. Bring everything. 2 hours. His voice was gravel, pain-blasted. But the woman heard him. She nodded. Took off running toward a nearby payphone. No second guesses. No questions. Just urgency and belief. She dialed. Marcus answered. She delivered the message word for word. When Marcus heard it, he didn't ask anything more. He hung up and got to work. Calls, orders, summons. Harlem's entire machine came to life in that instant. The counterattack had ignited. The clock was now counting down. In the alley, Bumpy hung on. Police combed the scene across the street, asked vague questions, got back vague answers. A man fell, or maybe he jumped, or was pushed. Nobody knew. No one could describe the man. Different heights, different builds, different races. The perfect fog of confusion. Police logged it, shrugged, and moved on. Harlem overflowed with trouble back then. This scene wasn't going to make the top of anyone's file. Bumpy focused inward. He had to. The pain was volcanic now, leg throbbing, hip stabbed with every breath, shoulder howling. But he forced himself to stay present. He regulated his breath like a soldier, in and out. Every inhale a rope holding him here, keeping the world from going black. He couldn't afford to let go. Not until it was done. At 9:15 p.m., Marcus Webb pulled into the alley behind 228. 3 men with him. They saw Bumpy, bruised, broken, but alive. Marcus ran over, eyes wide. You need a doctor. Bumpy shook his head. Not yet. First we handle Red. Then I'll heal. How many men can you get in 1 hour? The words were tight with restraint, but under them, fire. The anger had become something sharper than pain, a blade edged in strategy. 30, maybe 35. Depends who's around. It's Saturday night. Some are posted, others out. Bumpy nodded. Get 35. Take the full 90 minutes. I'll use it. He laid it all out. What happened on the rooftop, the ambush, the fall, the survival. What had to happen next? Red thought Harlem's king was dead. Red was about to learn. You don't come after Bumpy Johnson and live to sip whiskey over it. This isn't a payout, Bumpy seethed. This is erasure. Every bar, every gym, every drop point they own. Every face loyal to Red dies tonight. Everyone. No survivors. No hints of continuation. They end, or we do. Marcus didn't flinch. He took it in stride. That'll draw attention. Cops, headlines, feds. Shooting up Hell's Kitchen across 5 spots? That's a war. I don't care, Bumpy growled. Let them watch. Let them write about it. The Westside Boys' mistake? Thinking I'd stay down. Now it's time everyone learns the penalty for trying to erase me is extinction. There wasn't an ounce of uncertainty in Bumpy's voice. This was war. Marcus had 2 options, help or step aside. Marcus chose war. Understood, he said. 90 minutes, 35 men, full arsenal. He turned to one of the crew. Call Freddie. We need a field splint. Freddie was an ex-army medic, a World War II survivor who treated wounds that hospitals wouldn't touch. No license, but he kept Harlem's underworld stitched together. 20 minutes later, Freddie arrived. In the alley, under dim white, he examined Bumpy. The leg needed a mobilization. The hip needed setting. The shoulder needed bracing. Bad breaks, Freddie said. You need to be still. Bumpy just stared straight ahead. No meds, he said. Fix me so I can last the night. Freddie went to work, pulling bones back into place, wrapping, bracing, strapping. Bracing, strapping. Bumpy didn't scream once. He pressed his jaw tight, let the agony come, and used it to ignite the fire deeper inside him. By 10:15 p.m., the organization had assembled. Not 35, 37. Word had spread. Bumpy Johnson had been thrown off a roof by a white gang from Hell's Kitchen. Harlem came in force to answer it. Not just for Bumpy, for the street, for the code, for the truth that Harlem bows to nobody. The weapons cache looked like it belonged in a battalion. Shotguns, pistols, Thompsons, full stacks of ammunition, enough to turn a neighborhood into rubble. This wasn't a retaliation. It was an invasion. Bumpy broke them into units, 5 teams, 7 men each, 2 extra units as backup and oversight, each assigned to a target. Sullivan's Tavern, Red's HQ, Dempsey's Gym, their training grounds. Lucky 7 Gambling Den, their financial engine. Murphy's Garage, their transport and stolen goods depot. Omali's Bar, Old Lieutenant Hop. 5 locations, 5 targets, 1 night, no turning back. Attacks would happen simultaneously at exactly 10:45 p.m. They'd roll out by 10:15, cross into Hell's Kitchen, set positions, wait for the minute. The idea wasn't to hit hard, it was to hit everywhere, so fast, so clean, nobody could respond before it was over. 90 minutes, in, out, done. Bumpy wasn't going into battle himself. Couldn't. But that didn't mean he wasn't leading. Marcus drove the car. Parked at 10th Avenue and West 46th, where Bumpy could watch 3 of the targets with binoculars. Radio contact linked to team leads. Bumpy wasn't missing a second of what was coming. Strategy didn't live in the legs. Strategy lived in the mind, and his mind was on fire. At 10:44 and 47 seconds, the teams were in position, watches synchronized, hearts steady. The targets were alive and unaware. Sullivan's Tavern glowed on 10th Avenue, 12 inside celebrating. Red Malone visible through the window, drink in hand. Dempsey's Gym, 8 in mid-training. The Lucky 7, 15 gamblers swimming in cash. Murphy's Garage, 4 mechanics working on hot cars. Omali's Bar, 10 lieutenants discussing Harlem's future like it was already theirs. Bumpy's eyes scanned each location. 50 men across 5 places, every one of them connected to his fall. In a few seconds, they'd pay for it in full. Then it hit 10:45 p.m., not a breath early, not a second late, and Hell's Kitchen exploded. Sullivan's Tavern, 10th Avenue and West 47th. Team 1. 7 men led by Raymond Lewis, Army infantry, war-tested, didn't flinch. He split them across every angle, 3 at the front, 2 on windows, 2 at the back door. The tavern had no defense. No security. It was supposed to be a party. Raymond kicked the door off its hinges. Before it hit the floor, his Thompson barked. First burst hit Red Malone square in the chest. 3 clean shots. The whiskey glass in his hand shattered just as he did. Red fell back. Chair crumbled under him. Dead before the floor caught him. Inside, chaos. 11 Westside Boys scrambled, too late. Raymond's crew surged like a wave. They fanned out, squeezed their triggers in short, controlled bursts. No wasted bullets, no panic. Shotguns blasted crowd clusters. Handguns picked off those who slipped between the cracks. The room filled with smoke, screaming, the smell of blood and liquor. In 45 seconds, it was done. Silence. 12 bodies, 1 bar reduced to wreckage. No survivors. Team 1 ducked out back, into the car waiting in the alley. By the time sirens echoed, they were ghosts. Dempsey's Gym, West 44th and 9th. Team 2, led by Thomas Bishop, ex-Marine, Pacific Campaign, raw muscle and precision rage. Dempsey's was big, open, lined with heavy bags, rings, and weight benches. 8 men inside, training, sweating, prepping for a future they wouldn't see. No bullets to start. Thomas opened with fire. 4 Molotov cocktails crashed through the gym's wide front windows. Flames licked across the floor on impact, igniting equipment, rubber mats. A living inferno. Inside, panic split the men like a hammer. They ran for exits, front, side, back, but Team 2 had sealed every door. No way out. As the fire trapped them, the bullets completed the sentence. One by one, as they emerged, Team 2 finished them. 8 dead, no mercy. The building glowed red from the inside. Thomas gave one last look, nodded once, and slipped around the block with his crew, leaving fire and ash behind. The Lucky 7 gambling den, West 52nd and 11th. Team 3, James Carter in charge, Harlem-born, street-trained, no uniform but every bit the soldier. The basement setup had only one entrance, a natural defense, but James made that a trap. 2 men waited topside. 5 descended into the den. Downstairs, cards clacked, dice rolled, glasses clinked. 15 Westside Boys deep in profit. No idea time had run out. Team 3 didn't knock. They stepped in and opened up. 2 Thompsons shredded tables. Revolvers barked between wagers. Stacks of cash scattered through the air like snowfall. Blood puddled around lucky chips. With only one way out, and that blocked, the gamblers had nowhere to run. It was a massacre in a basement. 90 seconds of noise turned to cold silence. 15 men were down. James signaled for the team to fall back. No loose ends. They rose back to street level. In seconds, they melted into the night. Murphy's Garage, West 41st and 10th. Team 4, led by William Davis, former mechanic turned enforcer, worked with Bumpy since 47. He knew the heartbeat of a garage where men stood, where steel hid, where gas leaked. 4 men worked inside, cutting VINs from stolen cars, obscuring plates. Just another night erasing identities. They never saw it coming. William ran a tight schedule. At 10:44, 2 men cut the power. The shop went dark. No buzz of tools, only confusion. At 10:45 on the dot, they burst through the side entrance, flashlights cutting through the gloom. No shouting, no warnings. They shot fast and purposefully. 20 seconds, that's all it took. 4 bodies dropped among stripped engines. Before leaving, they cracked open fuel reserves, let gasoline bleed across the floor. A match followed. The entire operation burned into black smoke. Omali's bar. West 50th and 9th. Team 5. Robert Miller led this unit. Ex-boxer, retired brawler, left the ring and stepped into Harlem's underworld with heavy fists and heart. The bar looked innocent, a place for laborers. Jokes, bitter drinks. But in the back room, 10 Westside lieutenants sipping whiskey over tomorrow's plans. 10 too many. Robert's team entered silent. Through the front, past civilians, eyes forward, no one touched a patron, no chaos yet. The back room was their target. Door closed, unlocked. Robert pushed it open. 10 men looked up, confused. Then fear bloomed too late. Robert's crew filled the frame, brought the thunder. Seconds of gunfire ruptured the room. Tables flipped. Bottles exploded. Puddles exploded. Plans died on the tongue. 30 seconds. 10 dead. No one inside escaped. The team left through the alley, slipping past frightened bar stools. No civilians injured. No names needed. Across all 5 sites, fire, bullets, glass. Echoes rumbling across Hell's Kitchen. The entire offensive took 4 minutes, exactly, from first shot to last. 49 members of the Westside Boys gone. Not subdued, eliminated. Police began receiving frantic calls at 10:46. Gunshots at Sullivan's, flames at Dempsey's, multiple shoots, no patterns, just pure chaos. At 10:51 p.m., the first officer rolled up to Sullivan's Tavern. Red Malone lay still, eyes open, drink spilled at his feet. Casings adorned the floor like a warning. No shooters, no answers, just death. Over the next 8 minutes, more units flooded to the other sites. Each one told the same horror. 5 attacks, 5 crime scenes, 0 suspects. Organized, synchronized, gone before flashing lights touched the brick. Markers of military precision were everywhere. Coordinated entries, tactics, clean extraction. It was war, launched and ended in a quarter of an hour. Bumpy watched from the car. Pain hammered his body like steel, but what filled him now wasn't agony, it was satisfaction. Every team had reported back. Every target confirmed eliminated. There were no Harlem casualties, not one. On Red side, 49 gone. Dead weight removed from the map. Mathematical perfection. Eye for an eye? No. This was one for 49. A message carved into Hell's Kitchen itself. Don't miss when you come at the crown. By 11 p.m., Marcus turned the car south out of Hell's Kitchen, back toward Harlem. They didn't rush. Speed drew attention. Just another pair of headlights blending in with Saturday night traffic. Inside, Bumpy leaned back, breath shallow. The adrenaline was fading, and the pain was roaring in its place. Every jolt of the ride sent knives to his hip, fire through his shoulder, and a steady drumbeat through his shattered leg. But he held on. At 11:47 p.m., they pulled up to the rear entrance of Freddy's clinic. Everything was ready. A sterile room, makeshift surgery tools, a jury-rigged x-ray machine, and morphine that Bumpy still refused. Freddy took one look and got to work. The x-rays told the full story. Broken left femur, clean break, no shattering. A cast would handle it. 6 to 8 weeks for fusing. The dislocated hip, already reset, thankfully without complications. Rest and time would heal it. The shoulder separation needed to be immobilized. Sling, brace, weeks of downtime. Freddy cleaned the wounds, injected antibiotics, offered heavier meds again. Bumpy didn't blink. "I need clarity," he said. "Rage is doing the job just fine." He didn't say it with pride, just truth. Pain sharpened him. It reminded him he was still here. Once stable, Bumpy was moved. Not home. Not anywhere public. A safe house in the Bronx, anonymous off-record property deeded to a ghost name. No law could track it. No rival could leak it. That apartment became his headquarters, his hospital, and for now, his fortress. Marcus handled security with militant discipline. 3 shifts, 4 men each. Round-the-clock protection. Armed, trusted. No one got in or out without clearance. Visitors forbidden. Radios secure. Bumpy, broken as he was, would still be safer than any man in Harlem. The next morning, the press went fluorescent. Sunday, October 5th, newsprints bled headlines faster than the city could bind them. The Daily News ran it largest. Hell's Kitchen Massacre, 49 dead in coordinated gang assaults. Page 1, full photo, full panic. The New York Times followed with restraint. 5 gang sites attacked in Manhattan. Questions emerge in wake of carnage. Their tone was measured, historical. They mentioned organized crime, rivalries, legacy violence, but no names. The Amsterdam News, Harlem's own, told another truth. Harlem strikes back, retaliation after attack on local leader. Page 1, center column. It didn't confirm anything. Didn't accuse Bumpy by name. But between the lines, the message was wowed. The streets remember who protects them. The report staggered the city. Red Malone, officially identified. Westside Boys, broken beyond recognition. Police were still trying to count the bodies, separate the witnesses from the shadows. The articles hinted at gang escalation, maybe a failed assassination, maybe not. Retribution, perhaps. Coordinated crime across 5 locations? Maybe. Theories spun everywhere, but facts were scarce. No one would, speak to the Bumpy connection. Because Harlem didn't betray its own. The NYPD flooded Hell's Kitchen. Yellow tape and badges wrapped around every site. Evidence was swept like grains of sand, casings, blood, scorch marks. Hundreds of items tagged. Dozens of cameras flashed while homicide detectives paced floors still slick with aftermath. Gun types identified. Thompson submachine guns, shotguns, pistols, revolvers. The shooters were armed for war, not warning shots. But none of the weapons were recovered. No prints, no fibers. DNA? It was 1952. Science hadn't caught up to the street yet. For all its manpower, the investigation barely moved. Detectives hauled in locals, bartenders, customers, neighbors, shop owners, hundreds of them. The questions flew hot. The answers cold. Nobody saw who fired. Nobody described a face. Descriptions varied. Black, maybe Latino, maybe dark Italian, short, tall, lean, stocky, inconsistent, unusable. The streets spoke in riddles. And when riddles weren't enough, silence. The NYPD created a task force, 20 detectives assigned full-time, files stacked fast. Federal eyes hovered. The FBI whispered through their usual channels, interested, hesitant, watching from the coasts of bureaucracy. Official theory: some unknown Harlem force had answered a provocation with military-level execution. Unofficial truth: the Westside Boys had made a mistake so big it ended them overnight. 6 months. That's how long they hunted for answers. They searched through thousands of pages, followed leads that trailed off like smoke in the rain, mapped bullet trajectories, lined up entry wounds. They even ran mathematical models trying to make sense of the precision. The conclusion? Nothing. 0 arrests, 0 names, 0 justice. All 5 cases remained open, but dormant. Investigators called them unsolvable, but in other circles, in the underground nerve of the city, justice had already been delivered. Completely. Red Malone was dead. His lieutenants were dead. His soldiers, the ones who held bats, crowbars, smirks on that rooftop, all of them were gone. Their safe houses burned, businesses shuttered, connections severed. By the end of that month, the very phrase Westside Boys had vanished off the map. No schoolyard whispers, no corner tales of survivors. The name carried shame and fear, because even in crime, there are lines and consequences. Other crews filled the vacuum. Mob families pushed deeper. Freelancers staked claims, but none of them looked north. None of them touched Harlem. That invisible line at 1/10 became ironclad. Because everyone now knew, Bumpy Johnson doesn't lose territory. He buries intruders. There was no parade, no banner across Lenox Avenue, but word traveled faster than front pages. Inside the criminal underworld, the story grew legs and sprinted. It whispered through pool halls, barbershops, backrooms. Bumpy Johnson had been thrown off a building, and 2 hours later, the men who did it ceased to exist. Not weakened, not wounded, erased. No warning, no speeches, just 49 dead, 5 scenes, 4 minutes. Warfare in a city of whispers. By December 1952, Bumpy was walking again. Not like before, his left leg carried memory beneath every step. The cane helped, the limp stayed, but he moved with purpose, and more importantly, he was seen. He returned to Small's paradise in Harlem like a ghost walking back into his kingdom. Same table, same posture. New legend. The skyline had shifted and the center belonged to him again. Everyone saw it. The ones who'd stayed silent. The ones who'd waited to see who rose and who fell. They saw the man they thought had been crushed, now holding court. A survivor. A ghost reborn. The unkillable. That fall from the rooftop cut deep, though. Left permanent scars beneath the suits and silk. On colder days, his hip ached. The shoulder stiffened in the mornings. The limp wasn't just pain, it was a reminder carved into his gait, a badge of defiance, a trigger in both leg and memory. But none of it changed the truth. Bumpy hadn't been broken. He hadn't been erased. His body learned how to hurt, but his will, his command, untouched. And what mattered more, everyone knew it. Red Malone's family collected what was left of him 6 months later. After the investigation dried up, the police finally released his body. The funeral was small, quiet, unpublicized. A cemetery in Queens, a simple stone, a pit in the dirt where arrogance now lay. The headstone didn't speak of ambition or conquest or failure. It just read, Patrick Malone, 1918-1952. No glory, no fanfare, just an end. No mention of a war lost. No whisper of a kingdom he tried to steal and paid for in blood. The Westside Boys disappeared with him. No one claimed them anymore. Their name turned to dust. Businesses once under their grip were claimed by others, more careful, less arrogant. Invisible hands passed through the wreckage, reassigning power. But in Harlem, there was no movement, no new flags, no new threats. It was sacred ground again, locked under one name, Bumpy Johnson. The legend was cemented not in what he did once, but in how fast, how thoroughly, how unmistakably he responded. The 2-hour window, the 4-minute climax, the message, "You do not try Bumpy Johnson." Years later, in 1968, a New York Magazine journalist tried to piece it all together, called it "The Night Hell's Kitchen Burned." The article dug deep. Timeline, wine-stained photos, old case files, 5 attacks, 49 confirmed dead, connections drawn in careful ink, names left out, but all fingers pointed in one direction. That fall from a Harlem rooftop. That man. The magazine dared not accuse, but implication threaded every paragraph. And in the margins, every reader in the know nodded along. Their conclusion was simple. The massacre was still unsolved. No suspects, no indictments. But in the streets, everybody knew. The math was there. The physics of vengeance, the lesson clear. You strike in Harlem, you face Harlem. But if you come for Bumpy Johnson, then you'd better succeed. Because failure doesn't just mean death, it means extinction. Stories like this don't just live in history, they echo in legacy. What Bumpy Johnson did that night wasn't just retaliation, it was a message that still ripples decades later. If this tale moved you, challenged you, or even just kept you on the edge of your seat, consider giving it a like. Drop your thoughts below. What would you have done? And don't forget to subscribe for more true legends from the streets, the shadows, and the history they refuse to erase.